The meeting invitation arrived without warning, just a calendar block marked mandatory and confidential. I walked in expecting routine procedure. Instead, the door closed behind me and stayed closed. HR was already seated with folders aligned like shields. My boss spoke softly, almost kindly, using words like concern stability and alignment. His tone suggested protection, not threat, yet every sentence carried weight. I understood immediately this room was not about my work or my results. He reviewed my record with theatrical politeness, praising discipline, consistency, and loyalty. Then he paused and mentioned numbers that were not part of my role. Cash flow, timing, discretionary approvals, unexplained cushions. He said it was risky for someone in my position to be curious. HR nodded without looking up. That was when the air shifted. This was not a warning. It was containment. I responded calmly, because experience teaches when to listen instead of defend. I realized they had rehearsed this moment. The gentle language was meant to make me doubt myself. They spoke as if I were fragile and replaceable. They believed pressure worked best when disguised as care. I said little and noted everything. Faces. Timing. The order of documents. In that silence, I felt years of boardrooms, negotiations, audits, and quiet winds settle in my chest, reminding me that survival in power games comes from patience, memory, and control. When the meeting ended, they expected gratitude or fear. I offered neither. I left with clarity, not anger. Walking back to my desk, I understood the mistake they had made. They thought I was disposable. They never asked who signed the checks. I began noticing the pattern long before anyone suspected a problem. It was not dramatic or obvious. It appeared quietly over years of meetings, budgets, and reviews. Certain raises arrived without justification, slipping past freezes that stopped everyone else. Bonuses appeared during lean quarters, approved without discussion. They were explained away as retention or market adjustment, but the timing never matched reality. Experience teaches when numbers whisper instead of shout. I watched one vendor win contracts regardless of performance delays or complaints. Their invoices were processed faster than policy allowed. Exceptions were granted automatically while others waited months. No one challenged it publicly. I did not confront or speculate. I opened files, archived emails, and approval trails. Dates, amounts, and signatures were saved quietly. Memory is a professional asset when emotions are removed. Each time someone joked about luck or favoritism, I stayed neutral. I asked operational questions and thanked people for their time. At home, I reviewed spreadsheets and reconciled movements that should not align. The picture formed slowly but clearly. This was not generosity. It was a payoff structure designed to look ordinary. I never accused because accusations warn people. Documentation waits. By the time the meeting arrived, my records were complete and untouched. I knew who benefited, who approved, and who stayed quiet. I understood why no one spoke. Silence protects until evidence is ready. Years of discipline made patience automatic, not emotional. It removed doubt and replaced instinct with certainty. The pattern was undeniable by then. When I finally stopped talking, it confused them. They mistook restraint for weakness. Silence was not fear. It was preparation. I never confronted him because I had seen this movie before. Loud accusations feel satisfying, but they shorten careers and protect the guilty. I had watched skilled professionals explode in meetings only to be escorted out while the problem survived untouched. Experience teaches that impatience creates noise, not outcomes. I chose restraint because I understood the terrain. There were moments when confrontation tempted me. Snide remarks, sudden pressure, and public undermining were designed to provoke reaction. I refused to give it. Systems reward composure and punish emotion. I documented instead of arguing and waited instead of threatening. I knew once words were spoken, control would be lost. I had learned that systems always confess if left undisturbed. Emails contradict stories, logs outlast loyalties, and policies remember details people forget. My role was to let the structure speak for itself. I observed approvals, patterns, signatures, and silence accumulating proof without resistance. I stayed silent because I respected consequences. Confrontation warns adversaries and allows cleanup. Waiting removes that advantage. Each day I delayed strengthened the record and weakened his options. I slept well knowing the outcome was already written, even if unread. Experience teaches that patience is not passivity, but controlled motion toward inevitability. I trusted structure memory and time to do the work. Nothing rushes truth faster than leaving it alone. That lesson was earned slowly over decades of work. By the time doubt crept into his voice, I was already finished reacting. Calm became armor and patience became leverage. Nothing unsettles arrogance more than someone who refuses to be rushed. People over 50 know this. Time exposes what anger cannot. The turning point arrived quietly on an ordinary afternoon. No meeting, no tension, no raised voices. I was reviewing routine reports when a single figure paused me. It was not large or alarming. It was familiar. Familiarity is often the first warning. I returned to it later with fresh eyes and a clear head. I followed the trail carefully. One account led to another, then to a routing detail that felt out of place. The path was clean, almost elegant. That was what made it dangerous. Clean paths are designed, not discovered. I compared months, then years. The same transfer repeated with mechanical precision. Always approved. Always unchallenged. There was no drama in that moment. Just math timelines and confirmations. Numbers do not argue or defend themselves. They sit and wait. I verified authorizations, cross-checked policies, and confirmed separation of duties. The answer held under pressure because it was never meant to be questioned. That repetition was the confession. I did not celebrate or react. I saved copies, logged dates, and closed my screen. Emotional responses distort judgment. Precision requires distance. The calmness of the discovery mattered more than the discovery itself. This was no clerical oversight or friendly exception. It was intentional continuity, designed to appear invisible. Walking away, I felt certainty replace suspicion. The narrative shifted completely. That was when I understood. This was not favoritism. It was laundering reputation. I did not accuse anyone when I spoke to compliance. I asked a question the way seasoned professionals do, calmly, precisely, and without narrative. I referenced a policy clause and asked how exceptions were documented over time. The tone was neutral, almost boring. That is why it worked. Questions that sound harmless travel further than allegations ever could. Compliance thanked me and logged the inquiry as routine. I left the office and returned to work without watching the ripple spread. Systems react faster than people realize. The moment the question was entered, automated thresholds noticed patterns humans had normalized. Flags rose quietly because that is how they are designed to behave. No alerts were sent to me and no one called for clarification. That silence was the signal. Internal audit processes rarely announce themselves. Access reviews begin, logs are preserved, and timelines freeze. Conversations slow down because lawyers prefer quiet. I stayed invisible because visibility contaminates outcomes. Within days, calendars emptied without explanation. People stopped making eye contact in corridors. Policies were suddenly cited with precision they never had before. The system was awake and moving forward without permission. I had not pushed anything. I had simply allowed a mechanism to complete its cycle. Nothing about it felt aggressive, public, or personal, just procedural, inevitable, and slow, the way real consequences move when they are powered by rules instead of voices or tempers that survive pressure, scrutiny, time alone, quietly. I did not start chaos or chase punishment. I understood how collapse actually begins. It starts with permission to look. I did not start the fire. I opened the door. What happened when his protection vanished? Once his protection vanished, the building changed tone overnight. Meetings that had filled weeks ahead were canceled without explanation. Calendars emptied, as if someone had erased authority itself. People who once crowded his doorway suddenly remembered other obligations. Silence replaced confidence, and urgency dissolved into avoidance. Legal language took over conversations where jokes once lived. Emails grew shorter, colder, and carefully copied. A notice of temporary leave appeared, framed as health-related and compassionate. No one asked questions because questions attract risk. The structure protected itself by creating distance from the source. Vendors adjusted quickly. Calls went unanswered, proposals were withdrawn, and familiar partners suddenly discovered conflicts. Loyalty follows stability, not friendship. The moment approval power weakened, relationships recalibrated. I observed none of it directly. Absence keeps perspective clean and prevents misinterpretation. I was not summoned, consulted, or blamed. That mattered. When systems work, they do not need witnesses. Outcomes arrive quietly through memos, access changes, and unspoken rules. Watching from a distance confirmed what experience had taught me long ago. Authority without structure evaporates quickly. What struck me most was how quickly certainty turned into isolation. The same hierarchy that enforced obedience rewrote memory to protect itself. Titles mean little when endorsement disappears. Stability is a fragile agreement. When it breaks, momentum reverses, and everyone steps back to preserve position carefully, quietly, without explanation, because survival inside institutions rewards distance, timing, restraint, patience, above emotion, loyalty, noise, reaction, always alone. By the time his name stopped appearing on agendas, the story was already over. There was no victory speech or celebration, just correction. Power disappears faster than it arrives. He called late in the afternoon when the office was quiet and decisions had already been made. I recognized the number immediately and let it ring while finishing my notes. The voicemail followed seconds later, measured, careful, and restrained. There was no apology, no explanation, no admission. He spoke as if hierarchy still existed and asked whether I could help clarify a few misunderstandings. I listened once without reacting. The request was not about truth or repair. It was about access. He wanted guidance, introductions, and context he could no longer reach alone. Years earlier, that voice had dismissed questions, redirected concerns, and controlled outcomes. Now it searched for stability where authority had collapsed. I did not return the call because responding would have rewritten the story. Silence preserved accuracy. Engagement would suggest leverage, emotion, or unfinished business. I had none. I had already said everything necessary by refusing to interfere with the process. Dignity sometimes means choosing absence over explanation. Later, another call came, then a message asking for discretion. I deleted both without anger or satisfaction. Closure does not require confrontation. It requires clarity. The system was correcting itself, and my presence would only slow it. That evening, I left work on time and noticed how light the day felt. Not triumphant, not relieved, simply complete. There was nothing left to prove or reclaim. The moment he reached out, I understood the distance between us had become permanent. I was no longer part of his solution or his defense. I was not angry. I was finished. And I walked forward without looking back again, ever in complete certainty. You may have been underestimated, ignored, or slowly pushed aside, while louder voices took credit. This message is for you. Experience does not shout because it does not need permission. It records decisions, remembers patterns, and survives trends that burn bright then disappear. If you have lived long enough in professional rooms, you know how often arrogance mistakes volume for strength. You also know how many systems are built to reward patience, documentation, and timing. What feels like waiting is often positioning. What looks like silence is frequently strategy. Do not rush to correct those who misjudge you. Let structure handle education. Keep your records clean, your boundaries clear, and your work precise. Institutions respond to evidence, not emotion, and history favors those who understand this early or learn it late. There will be moments when being overlooked feels personal. It is not. It is structural blindness. Continue refining your craft and protecting your integrity. When shifts come, they will need stability, not noise. That is when your value becomes visible without explanation. Building quietly is not weakness. It is endurance. It is the ability to remain steady while others exhaust themselves performing importance. Over time, systems remember who made them work when pressure arrived and confusion spread. If this story resonates, take it as confirmation, not instruction. You already know what to do. Trust your preparation and allow outcomes to mature. People who build quietly do not need revenge. They let structure remember their name. Carry this knowledge forward with patience, confidence, and discipline, because the long view always belongs to those who endure and build lasting professional legacies.